How's it going, everybody? Welcome in to another episode of the Mavs Step Back Podcast. I'm your host, Dalton Trigg. I am joined, as always, by my co-host, Drew Johnson. It is July 1st. Free agency it didn't start out with a bang, but it has
It,
turned into that here on the
it's
second day.
banged.
It banged pretty hard because it started out, the Mavs, they were obviously pegged as favorites for Klay Thompson. Negotiations between Thompson and the Lakers and the Mavs went on into uh, Monday, even though free agency technically started on Sunday. So there was a lot of anxious moments. The Mavs, they already lost Derek Jones Jr. They signed Najee Marshall for the New Orleans Pelicans, which I think is a sneaky good pickup for them.
hmm
We'll talk about him a little bit later. Uh, and then obviously, they traded Tim Hardaway Jr. for Quentin Grimes that we've already talked about on a previous episode. But it finally broke. The Mavs got a commitment from Klay Thompson on a 3-year, $50 million deal. After 11 seasons, he was technically with the Warriors for 13 years, but he played in 11 seasons for the Warriors, won 4 championships, and it's all over now. He is having a change of scenery. He is joining Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving, who are, they're gonna, how can I say that? They're going to elevate his game from what we've seen, the last couple of years with Klay Thompson, because not only are they two of the best backcourt players in the league, but Klay, he hasn't had the same level of uh, front court production around him in Golden State that he did, or that he's going to have now with the Mavs. I'm trying to collect my thoughts here. I'm still very excited, but Derek Lively guarding the paint. The roster top to bottom isn't losing. I mean, look, the Mavs have turned Tim Hardaway Jr., Derek Jones Jr., and Josh Green. Josh Green was a casualty from this Klay Thompson signing because it's going to end up being a 3-way deal. It's a sign and trade, and Josh Green is getting shipped to the Charlotte Hornets. I'm so sorry, Josh, but you're joining Grant Williams with the Hornets. They turned those 3 players into Klay Thompson, Najee Marshall, and Quentin Grimes. That's a huge win. And Klay Thompson, he has given the Mavs an element that we haven't seen with this team before. Used to, it's like, okay, teams are going to load up on Luka and Kyrie, and they're going to force the other guys to beat them. And the other guys aren't great 3-point shooters. Well, now if you load up on both Luka and Kyrie and you force the other guy to beat him, Klay Thompson's going to be that other guy now. And more times than not, he's going to make teams pay. I'm super excited for it. But DJ, what are your initial thoughts on the Mavs landing Klay Thompson? Which is, I mean, look, I'm not being overly dramatic when I say this is the best free agency signing in Mavs history, because the free agency history has been awful. And I know Klay is older, but this is clearly the best signing in Mavs history. What are you feeling?
We said after our run to the finals that things were going to be different now, and with new management, new coach, this is just a different era of Dallas basketball, and I think that this signing is a sign of the times. Um, and if we don't get to the finals this year, I don't think that we have shots at a player of Klay's caliber. But we did, and we do, and now he's in Dallas Mavericks. So, you know, I agree with you. I think it's the biggest free agency signing in Dallas basketball history. Um, I think that he's going to make life exponentially easier on our backcourt. I think that our backcourt is also simultaneously going to make his life much easier. Um, and it wouldn't shock me at all if Klay Thompson wasn't averaging 20 plus next season, just based off of all the open looks he's going to get. And he's going to be single guarded every single time. He's going to be shooting against closeouts. Um, People aren't just going to be hanging around him. And the fact of the matter is he's not the only shooter waiting in the wings now either. It's one thing if he is your only shooter, but now the Mavericks have several people that can knock down the long ball. So again, we're kind of going to the Boston Celtics kind of blueprint, if you will. But I think that maybe we're even better, or at least we're even more efficient, especially from a shooting perspective now. I think you add one of the best shooters ever in Klay Thompson, and then you've also got Quentin Grimes, who is also an extremely serviceable shooter, specifically from the corner. And Najee Marshall was a 39% three-point shooter, I believe, right? When he around 39?
Yeah, 39% for Najee Marshall.
So, the whole outlook of everything has changed. And if you thought that Daniel Gafford and Derek Lively had exponential opportunities on lobs and Gafford for post-ups, now things have changed. Now that lane is more wide open than it's ever been. So I don't want to say that it changes everything, but it changes a lot of things. And I think that they may give Boston the nod as the title is the favorite to repeat as champions, but it can't be by much, not anymore.
Yeah, I mean the Mavs. People will look at these finals this past year, and the narrative will be, well, the Celtics mopped the floor with the Mavs. They beat them in 5 games. Those games were closer than what that series ended up being. The Mavs should have won Game 3. If Luka doesn't foul out of Game 3, and that's mostly on him because he had some cheap fouls early on and put himself in that position, late. He tried to draw some fouls that he wasn't going to draw anyway. But, if the Mavs win that game, it's probably a 2-2 series going back to Boston for a Game 5. And then that assures you a Game 6, and then you don't know what's going to happen from there. So I think the series was a lot closer than what a lot of people realize because the Mavs were generating good shots. They just, I don't know if it was tired legs or just guys just not being ready for the moment. And, Derrick Jones Jr., Derrick Jones Jr. is going to end up being one of my favorite all-time one-hit wonder Mavs because he was incredible in his only season in Dallas.
Yeah.
He took on the assignment. He could guard pretty much everybody, and especially small guards who are quick and everything. But in the finals, it was just apparent that his lack of offense was killing the Mavs. And it wasn't just him. I mean, obviously, Kyrie Irving had a horrendous finals offensively. But, Derrick Jones Jr. specifically, he kept being left the Celtics kept leaving him open, and he just couldn't hit any shots. He shot 25% from 3 in the finals, 6 points per game. It just wasn't going to get it done. So, now you look at the team right now, and, one of the hot phrases, going around Mavs Twitter lately has been the point of attack defender. And look, I agree. I mean, Derrick Jones Jr., he was valuable in that respect. And Najee Marshall, I feel like he's being underrated, DJ, because, I've watched him up close and personal in those games in New Orleans, and the guy's a pest. I've seen him pick Kyrie's pocket, on a couple occasions. Like he's more than capable of guarding point guards. So I don't know where this narrative is coming from that Najee can't do that. But just because he's bigger than Derrick Jones Jr. doesn't mean he can't do that. All that Najee being bigger means is that he can do a little bit of every. He can guard more positions 1 through, probably 4. I wouldn't put Najee Marshall on a 5. If it was a small ball 5, you could, but
small ball, yeah.
But that, that part of it helps, even if you don't factor in Klay. That helps because Najee can shoot threes. Quentin Grimes is a better three-point shooter or a more consistent three-point shooter and has a better looking shot than Josh Green while also being a good defender. And now you add one of the greatest shooters of all time to your roster who is going to be getting wide open looks. And, he's a 40% I think last season he shot like 38% from three, I think. 38 or 39%. But then when the Warriors moved him to the bench, that kind of pissed him off, and he ended up shooting like 44% from three from the rest of the season. So I don't know. I think that's going to carry over into this year. And I'm with you, man. Like I know the Celtics are probably going to be favorites to repeat. But I don't know. The Mavs got better, and the Celtics have more competition in the East now because, the New York Knicks, they weren't healthy for this last playoff run. They're going to be healthy now, and they just added Mikal Bridges to their team, the Villanova brothers. Let's see, the Philadelphia 76ers, if they stay healthy, they just added Paul George. So, they have the three-headed monster. Yeah, they won't
stay healthy. Joel Embiid can't stay healthy. He's never been healthy for the playoffs. And, I mean, playoff P, that's another running joke. The only one that you can really count on to be consistent for them is Tyrese Maxey. And I'm sorry he can't do it for himself. So I don't think that Philadelphia will even be top. If they're lucky, they will be top three in the East, maybe.
Look, if Joel and look, I'm not really worried about Paul George. I don't really think he's good, but I just don't think it really matters when it comes to playoff success. But if Joel Embiid can stay relatively healthy in the regular season, they're going to win a lot of games because he's supremely talented. He's so good. He's annoying because he kind of plays like the center version of James Harden with his foul baiting, but it's effective. It translates to regular season wins. So I look at it from that perspective. The Celtics are going to have a little bit more competition in the East in the regular season, and then we'll see how it goes in the playoffs. The Cleveland Cavaliers, they're not a bad team. They probably would have given the Celtics a little bit more of, a run for their money if Donovan Mitchell hadn't been injured and Jared Allen, he was out for that entire series, I think.
He was.
So, I think there's going to be more competition there. And, a lot of this is injury luck and how it plays out. But, man, for a team that just went to the NBA Finals in the Mavs, and then you turn around and give prime Luka a weapon like Klay Thompson, it's just unbelievable to me. And a couple of notes here before we keep talking about this, but we'll get into Najee Marshall a little bit more too. But, as far as Klay goes, so Synergy tweeted out that the Mavericks ranked 26th in NBA last season, shooting 32% off screen three-point attempts last season. Klay Thompson led the NBA in off-screen scoring, shooting 41% on movement threes. So,
and that's what he's going to be getting. I mean, but largely, I mean, that is going to be the type of field goal attempts he's going to be receiving. And again, I'll say this all day long. I think Klay Thompson will probably play around 27, 28 minutes a game, and I think that he'll probably average around 20 a game. And he'll probably make about 5 to 7 threes a game. Yeah, I think that's a possibility.
See it happening. I could really see it.
Because they're just like one of two things is going to happen. Either Luka and Kyrie cumulatively are going to average 70 a game between the two of them, or they're going to have to collapse down because people can't single guard those people. They just can't. They have to help off. And whenever that help comes, I mean, it's basically pick your poison. And that poison oftentimes is either going to be a corner three from Klay Thompson, or it's going to be a lob to Derek Lively or Daniel Gafford.
Yep. Well, look, we've talked about the fit. We, even before this happened, we talked about Klay's fit. We knew it would be, fantastic for the Mavs, especially on the offensive end, if they were able to pull this off. And sure enough, they have. So, we've talked about the fit on the court. Now let's talk about the workings of how this, the nuts and bolts of how this came together behind the scenes, because Nico Harrison and Michael Finley, they were in California yesterday meeting with Klay and talking about, his role and the chance to win a 5th championship and, all that stuff. And, what I found very intriguing, not only did the Mavs beat out the Los Angeles Lakers for a marquee free agent for the first time ever. That I think, I don't think that's ever happened before. But not only do they beat out the Lakers, Klay took less money.
Yeah.
Because it's Klay agreed to a 3-year, $50 million deal with the Mavs. The Lakers were offering him 4 years, $80 million.
That's crazy. I can't get over that. I just can't. But I mean, that's the allure of going to the NBA Finals and largely keeping your nucleus.
Yep.
That's the allure of it. You're able to stack on it now. And we have never been in this position before, ever.
Yep. Unlike the Mavs of the past, the previous front office regime, they always put these big elaborate free agent pitches together and trying to get guys to come to the Mavs in the past, whether it was Darren Williams or Dwight Howard or Carmelo Anthony at one point. There's several guys they tried to make pitches.
DeAndre Jordan, that was a hell of a saga.
DeAndre Jordan. They actually secured the verbal agreement there, but then, but, the difference between now and then is then the Mavs were working on an idea that hadn't materialized. They were selling something that wasn't tangible. And now it's tangible. Now the Mavs can confidently go into a free agency pitch and say, hey, you see what we just did. The Western Conference is a gauntlet, and we basically walked through it relatively easily with Luka at like 75% health and got to the NBA Finals before we finally fizzled out. And it's like you, Klay Thompson, could be that missing piece to get us over the hump. And, it worked. I mean, that's the thing. You have those on-court results to go with, your free agency pitch, your vision for these guys, and you get them to buy into it. And that's what happened with Klay Thompson. And, another part of the Klay Thompson Lakers thing is, and I've seen some people say like, oh, well, he may not have turned down the 4-year, $80 million with the Lakers. It may have been, the Warriors not wanting to take back D'Angelo Russell in a sign and trade. Well, sure, but the Lakers could have. It didn't have to be D'Angelo Russell. The Lakers could have, had another trade package to make that work if they really wanted to. So, I mean, I don't think this is about, the Warriors declining it. I think this is truly a Klay Thompson decision to take less money. And really, it's not as much less money because there's no state income tax in Texas. So he's going to save some there. But look, this is from Adrian Wojnarowski. I don't even know if I said that. I just call him Woj. He said Thompson's deal was largely inspired over the chance to compete for a 5th title with the Western Conference champion Mavericks. He said the Lakers were incredibly intriguing to Thompson, but the financial savings from living in Texas over California and the fact that the Mavericks were within 3 victories of an NBA championship played immense factors in his decision, sources said. So there you go. I mean, that's it. That's your story right there. And look, I have to admit, DJ, all these years of Mavs free agency PTSD was getting to me. I think I even texted you earlier today and was just like, yeah, I think Klay is definitely going to the Lakers. Because, look, I mean, the Mavs were rumored to be the favorites like this entire time. They were even like a couple of hours before the news broke, Mark Stein put something up that said the Lakers were still trying their best to close the gap that the Mavs had on them for Klay's services. But I just kept thinking to myself, man, if this was going to happen, I expected it to happen pretty quick with the way Mark Stein was talking before free agency started. And the longer it went on, I kept thinking, man, this is going to be exactly how it was in the past, where the Mavs end up coming up second to a historically prominent coastal team for a guy like Klay Thompson. But then that notification hit, and I was just like,
thank God.
Yeah, let's go. So, I mean, look, I guess we'll start to wrap things up by just kind of looking forward to what's next this offseason, because we were going to talk a little bit more about Najee Marshall, but I think we've pretty much covered everything there. He's bigger than Derrick Jones Jr. Maybe not. He might not be quite as good of a point of attack defender on smaller guards, but like I said, I've seen him do it. I've seen him guard Kyrie Irving. We know how hard it is to guard Kyrie Irving. So he's capable and he can hit threes. Again, Quentin Grimes, we've talked about him. He can play defense. His shot is sound. He's only 24 years old. Najee Marshall is what, 26 years old? So still stayed young, even though you're adding 34-year-old Klay Thompson. So now we look at what might be next for the Mavs because they're not done. They could still end up doing something with Maxi Kleba. They could still add another. I think we have an open roster spot now, and there's been rumors about the Mavs being interested in bringing back Spencer Dinwiddie, which, in my personal opinion, I wouldn't be opposed to it. I know people have hard feelings about him picking the Lakers over the Mavs after he was bought out last season. But, I think, I look back at that 2022 team, DJ, and I see how well that three-headed guard monster of Luka, Jalen Brunson, and Dinwiddie did. And, Tim Hardaway Jr. is off the team now because in 2023, Dinwiddie came back for that second season with Dallas, and he wasn't quite as good. And I feel like part of that reason was, one, Jalen Brunson left to go to the Knicks, and two, Tim Hardaway Jr. came back from his injury. So it wasn't the same team dynamic. Now you could have the three-headed guard monster of Luka, Kyrie, and Dinwiddie, while also having, Klay Thompson into the mix now as a shooting guard. And you have a front court, with PJ Washington, Derek Lively, Gafford. The pieces are just there that I think would make it work great. Now, some people might say, well, why would we get Dinwiddie? Why don't you just elevate Jaden Hardy's status? I don't know. I still don't trust Jaden Hardy's ability to handle the ball like I would Dinwiddie, because Dinwiddie's 31 years old. We've seen him play a crucial. Like, I know Jaden Hardy had his moments in this last playoff run, but he didn't have the command that Dinwiddie did in 2022 when the Mavs made it to the Western Conference Finals. So I guess my thing is, what do you think about adding a guy like Dinwiddie, or should the Mavs just, kind of rely on internal development and try to kind of force Hardy into that third ball handler role?
Well, I think that with this extra roster spot, you look to pursue extra depth in certain positions. You either need another point guard or you need another post player if Gafford or Lively potentially get hurt. I think those are your two main target areas. I think that Dinwiddie fits the bill. And if he is the best available out of those two positions, like among both post players and point guards, then I think you pull the trigger. But I do think that those two things are of major, I wouldn't say major need, but it's a nice cushion to have. And I will say that post players are more prone to breaking down than guards are physically. So
Well, you got to remember, we have Dwight Powell now. I had to.
Unfortunately. But no, Dwight Powell's a great mascot. He's awesome.
Look, let me ask you this. Say the last roster spot. You there?
Yeah.
I don't know what happened. It glitched. Anyway, say the last roster spot is used for a guard. And say, Dinwiddie's available. There's the history there. It's worked in the past. There's really no reason it shouldn't work now, especially since he's not going to be pairing up with any lineups with Tim Hardaway Jr. On paper, it should work. But if you had a chance to give that last roster spot to Spencer Dinwiddie or Dennis Smith Jr., who would you give it to?
My brain says Dinwiddie. My heart says Dennis Smith Jr.
Dennis is a dog on defense.
He's a dog. He's very good. I just don't know if Dennis Smith is capable of running an offense like Dinwiddie can. I just don't know that Dennis is really the offensive player that Dinwiddie is. He's
Like, dude,
definitely a better athlete. He's definitely a better athlete. There's no question. I know that he sustained that knee injury, but apparently has 2 ACLs in one of his knees or something.
yeah,
So it didn't matter. They didn't even do. Did you know they didn't even do surgery on that knee?
I saw that. Yeah,
They didn't even do surgery on it. They looked at it and they were like, "Oh, this guy's got a spare. He can go." But
all right, guys, we're taking a quick break to tell you about Prize Picks, the #1 daily fantasy sports app. If you like daily fantasy sports, you got to get Prize Picks. Go download the app and use our promo code STEPBACK to get up to $100 matched on your first deposit. So, for example, if you want to deposit the full $100 on your first deposit, if you do that and you use our promo code STEPBACK, you will have $200 in your account to play with. So, any kind of, I know we're out of basketball season, but, if any kind of over-unders on points, rebounds, assists, stuff of that nature. We got football coming up. We got the Olympics coming up. I'm sure that'll be fun. There's a lot of different things you can do on Prize Picks, and we want you to take advantage and get more bang for your buck by using our promo code STEPBACK. All capital letters, all one word. And again, you use that promo code and you'll get up to $100 matched on your first deposit. And with the 4th of July hot dog eating contest coming up, Prize Picks will be providing a square for Jeffrey Esper to eat one hot dog. So if he eats one hot dog, you win. That's a pretty easy one, guys. So be sure to do that if you take advantage. Again, promo code STEPBACK, get up to $100 matched on your first deposit. Born with a spare ACL, unbelievable.
That's unreal, isn't it? But they each bring their own separate deals to the show. I like Dinwiddie. My brain likes Dinwiddie, and whenever it comes to basketball, I try to go with my brain.
Yeah, I wouldn't be mad either way. Obviously, I have a soft spot for Dennis because, he came into the league when I was first getting into the media stuff. My first ever time going to New Orleans on a media credential and getting to go in the locker room and, doing all that stuff. That Dennis, we kind of grew together, that first year and a half or so before he got traded. We still talk a little bit to this day, but so I have a soft spot for Dennis. I'd love to see him back. I think it's incredible that he's turned himself into one of the better perimeter defenders in this league today because, he wasn't terrible offensively his rookie year, his time in Dallas, but, he was more focused on offense at that point. But then after he moved on to his other situations, he really developed himself defensively, and it's been great to see his development. But on the flip side of that, man, I have seen Spencer Dinwiddie hit some big time shots for the Mavs. Look, if you go back and look at when that season, it was it was February 2022 when they traded Kristaps Porzingis to the Wizards for Dinwiddie and Bertans. And there was a stretch down the end of that season where Dinwiddie was hitting like game winners left and right. And one of them was in Boston.
Yeah.
He hit the game-winning 3 in Boston, and the final score was like 95-92. And I just, I think about that, and I'm like, man, I could totally see him doing the same thing for the Mavs in a big postseason spot, if they get back to the finals and end up playing the Celtics again. He was huge. He was huge, and he hit big shots all throughout the playoffs. So, especially in that first round against the Utah Jazz when Luka missed the first couple games. So I don't know. I'm like you. Hart says Dennis Smith Jr. Brain is kind of leaning more toward Dinwiddie, though. Even though he didn't choose the Mavs over the Lakers on the first chance like Klay did, I would still probably bring Dinwiddie back because he's been there and he's done that. He has more experience, and I know he's not the defender Dennis Smith is, but he has more control over on the offensive end, and I think the Mavs need that with the second unit.
Well, I'll say this, defense is great, but I feel like I don't want to say the importance of defense has diminished, but let's be real here. How many points did we hold Boston to? We held them, I think, 16 points below their average, right? When it's something like that, it was something crazy.
They averaged around 118, 119 points a game, I believe,
Yeah.
and the Mavs held them to 101.6 in 5 games in the NBA.
Let's call it what it is. Let's call it what it is. That was still only good enough to win one game.
Yeah.
Allowing them to average that many points.
Couldn't score.
We couldn't score.
And look, the reason Boston's defense was able to maintain the level of intensity that it did throughout that series, game in, game out, just hounding Luka and Kyrie, the reason they were able to keep that high level up for an extended period of time was because nobody else on the Mavs was going to punish them.
Yeah.
They certain guys got to rest several possessions because, the Celtics basically knew they weren't going to do anything. And now I think that has changed. I think the dynamic has changed. I think the Mavs are going to still maintain a high level of defense, especially with, a guy like Derek Lively, who I think he's definitely going to end up being the starter next year over Gafford. But, you're going to maintain that high level of defense, and now you're going to have this influx of offense. And I think I'm not saying that Tim Hardaway Jr. and Josh Green and Derek Jones Jr., I'm not saying that they're not smart players. I'm just saying I think overall, especially on the offensive end, like basketball IQ-wise, I feel like the Mavs got better adding Thompson, Grimes, and Marshall. I feel like they do more. They know what to do more on offense, and they have more of a purpose than the other guys did.
Well, they fit in better to the offense. What Jason Kidd has them doing is you have a lot of high ball screens in the middle of the floor, and you also have just a lot of straight line drives from the slots. And in order for an offense based off of penetration from those areas, whether it be pick and roll or straight line drives, the only way that it truthfully works is A, you have to have a lob threat, which we've got 2 of them, and B, you have to have shooters on the wings, and everyone on the wing has to be a threat. And they just weren't this year. And my point is, defense can only take you so far. Even if they are excellent defenders, if they are subpar offensive players, which in the finals they were, they hurt you. And we saw that firsthand. Now, hopefully, this issue has been mitigated with the recent acquisitions. And I think it has been. But we'll have to see. I think it has been. Again, this is why my brain tells me Dinwiddie. It gives us another gun.
Wait, it gives what now? It gives another what?
It gives us another gun.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and look, and I just saw a notification saying that the Lakers are now pivoting to try and they're trying to trade D'Angelo Russell so they can pivot to DeMar DeRozan now.
I think that's a done deal. I think he's going to the Lakers, but I don't think it's a good fit.
Well, I mean, DeRozan's a great offensive player, but he's not a 3-point shooter, which that's what the Lakers need. That's why they wanted Klay. They wanted to space things out and, kind of do what the Mavs are planning on doing now. But hey, we're going to take our first big free agency victory over an elite Coastal team. Take it, Lakers. Take that. We don't have very many big free agency victories, but man, this one was sweet. And I'm glad it really worked out. And I still can't believe, I mean, I know there's other factors that play into it, but on paper, when you consider that Klay could have gone to the Lakers for 4 years, $80 million, and he's in Dallas for 3 years, $50 million, that's crazy. And it just shows. it shows you how serious he is about winning too.
Yeah.
Because I made the statement the other day that if Klay ended up going to the Lakers, it was mainly just because he didn't want to leave California. Because every other factor said Mavs, Mavs, Mavs. This is your best chance to win. This is your best fit. You know, instead of 40-year-old LeBron, it's 25-year-old Luka and 32-year-old Kyrie Irving. You know, everything pointed to the Mavs, and I'm glad Klay. You know, I'm glad it clicked in here. Like, hey, yeah, this is where I need to go if I want to try and win my my 5th championship. Because I know, look, with the way things ended with him and the Warriors, don't you know he's going to be motivated to try and get that 5th ring and surpass Steph and Draymond Green and Steve Kerr and all of them. You know, that's going to be a big motivating factor for Klay going into the next season.
Well, now with the way things are, I think he's got a really good chance. I think if everyone can stay healthy, I think he's got a really good chance because I feel like the Nuggets got worse. The Timberwolves are, you know, they're the Timberwolves. And the Thunder concern me. The Thunder do concern me.
Oh, yeah, yeah. OKC definitely got better this summer.
Oh, man, they just got Hartenstein. And, you know, I love Hartenstein.
They got Hartenstein, and then they swapped
Caruso.
Josh Giddey for Alex Caruso. So
that's huge.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if Presti is just like doing voodoo or something, but first of all, the Caruso thing makes no sense to me. What was Chicago thinking?
Nobody
what
ever
are you
knows
thinking?
what Chicago's thinking.
What is going on over there? Like, they need to do psychological evaluations because it makes no sense.
And supposedly the Josh Giddey for Alex Caruso trade was the final straw that broke the camel's back with DeMar DeRozan, because DeRozan was willing to re-sign and come back to Chicago. And after that, he was just like, okay, these dudes are not serious.
That's absolutely ridiculous.
Oh.
Tell me you don't want to win without telling me you don't want to win.
But yeah, OKC, I mean, we talk about internal development with the Mavs. You know, there's a lot of internal development that's going to happen with OKC over the next several years too. So they're going to be tough. I mean, look, the West is probably going to go through the Mavs and the Thunder for the next several years.
Red River.
Jokic is still that guy. But the Nuggets, they just keep bleeding talent every offseason. They have no depth. They're relying too heavily on guys that have zero experience. Kentavious Caldwell Pope signed with the Orlando Magic, left for nothing this offseason, so they got worse. It's so things are getting a little desperate in Denver because supposedly Jokic is pushing for the front office to go sign Russell Westbrook right now. If that tells you where things are at currently in Denver. So.
You have to wonder if Jokic is long for that place now. With the recent things that they've done and haven't done, you have to wonder that. And you have to wonder how apt he would be to joining his good friend Luka Doncic somewhere.
It's been a pipe dream for a long time. I've thought about it. Now, look, after they won that title, I got to say, I figured Jokic was going to be in Denver for life after that, just kind of like how Giannis won it in Milwaukee. And but look, you never know. If these superstars, if they get a taste of what it's like to be on top like that and go several years where, and they get the feeling that their front office is being cheap, penny pinching, not doing everything it takes to win at a high level, things can change. And, now the Mavs have the assets, in my opinion, to where if a situation like that comes up, they could potentially make a pipe dream trade like that happen. Because that's an underrated part of this offseason, DJ. The Mavs have not had to trade those 2 first-round picks that they have available. They got their 2025 first-round pick and I believe 2031 first-round pick. And then I think they also had another pick swap that they could have potentially used. And they might be getting 2 second-round picks from the Charlotte Hornets for Josh Green. So What? The Mavs adding draft capital? What is happening?
That never happens. What did we have to trade for Klay Thompson?
A trade exception.
Oh.
That was it.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well.
A trade exception, sent Josh Green to Charlotte. And then the last time, I think it's still being negotiated, but supposedly there will be 2 second-round picks coming in for Josh Green. And look, the Mavs might give the Warriors one of the second-round picks to go with the trade exception. But the main thing is Klay Thompson is being taken in with that trade exception that was created from the Tim Hardaway Jr. trade. So, it's weird. It's kind of, from my understanding, so like Tim Hardaway Jr. made $16 million and Grimes makes around $4 million. I think they absorbed Grimes into the biannual exception. And so that created a $16 million trade exception from Tim Hardaway Jr. being absorbed into Detroit's cap space. And so the way Klay Thompson's contract, instead of it just being clean cut, divide 50 by 3, they could start out his contract at like 15.8 million in this first year and then just gradually go up. So, that's kind of how they worked it out, which tells me that, the Warriors were more interested in getting maybe just a second round pick than being forced to take on D'Angelo Russell.
Says a lot about D'Angelo Russell.
Which is, he's kind of like Tim Hardaway Jr. He has his moments, but, more times than not, it's just not enough. So.
Ugh.
Well, guys, look, that we wanted to come on here. This is technically an emergency pod. Tried to do it a little bit earlier, but when stuff like that happens during the middle of a work day, it makes it hard to do it. But we're all very happy. We're all very excited. The offseason is not over. It's going to be interesting to see what the Mavs do with that last roster spot, or if they make any more moves. Because, like I said, I could definitely see something happening with Maxi Kleba over the next several days. So we'll see how it goes. We appreciate all of you coming in and listening to us ramble for nearly an hour every time we do come on here and talk. Be sure to go like, rate, and subscribe on all your favorite podcast platforms. Hit that subscribe button on YouTube and go follow us on X, formerly known as Twitter. You can find myself at Dalton_Trigg. You can find my guy DJ at Coach Drew 33. And as always, be sure to go read our work on DallasBasketball.com, which is absolutely on fire today. There's so many things up from so many different people. Like go to DallasBasketball.com and read that stuff. Okay. Well, we appreciate it, y'all. Y'all have a good one. We'll see you next time.
Thanks, guys.